I watched Masters of the Universe as a non-fan. Here are my thoughts. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm talking about Masters of the Universe, the 2026 movie. I was able to see this thing early. These are going to be my honest, spoiler-free thoughts on the film. And before I share my thoughts, I want to let you know my personal background with Masters of the Universe. That being none. It's non-existent. I haven't seen any of the cartoon, the movie, none of that stuff. I have no familiarity outside of He-Man and Skeletor, nothing about the lore. So I was going in as fresh and as blind as can be. So that's my perspective before I dive into this. Of course, hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on the Masters of the Universe movie and your expectations for the film if you have not yet watched it, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 200,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean quite a bit. I didn't hate the marketing for this movie. I watched the trailer, thought it was pretty solid, and it intrigued me. Having seen the movie, I have a lot of cons, but I'm going to start with some pros. This is not some abomination. I have some positive things I want to start with. First and foremost, as a non-fan of Masters of the Universe, I can both acknowledge and respect that the film clearly has some love for the source material, because throughout the screening, there were moments where there'd be a certain line said by a character, or a character would wield a weapon, or whatever it may be, and the crowd would go wild. It was a press screening with general audience as well, and there would be moments that clearly appealed to the die-hard fans of Masters of the Universe. And anytime a film comes out, it's an adaptation of beloved IP, that's what you hope for. And so it seems like, and again, I could be off base here because I have no idea what this fan base is like, but it seems like at least the fans in the theater I saw it at were pretty hyped up time and time again by a character showing up, by a character saying a line, by a certain reveal that would happen. So I think it's probably packed with fan service elements, for better or for worse. But again, my read on this is that super big mega fans of Masters of the Universe will have many moments to smile and, you know, be like, oh, that's so cool to see on the big screen. Then when it comes down to the cast itself, I think there are some bright spots, notably Idris Elba, who plays the character Duncan. He's like this badass warrior early on in the film. Then some events take place and he's kind of down in the dumps, but seeing him rise up again and be who he's always meant to be was cool. I think Idris Elba just has a natural charm, natural charisma. You give him any script, he's gonna be able to work with that thing. Even if he doesn't have as much screen time, he is a great supporting actor here. And then Nicholas Galitzine, I believe is how his name pronounced, plays Adam or He-Man in the film. He's the lead of the film. Is he able to carry the movie on his back at times? I think he does the best with what he's given. There are some moments where I'm like, he's not really doing it for me, but others where I'm like, oh, I see it. He's got some star power in him. So it was just depending on the scene, depending on the context. But I think a lot of moments where I scratched my head with any of the characters involved the writing of the film. Nothing really to do with the performances, because I thought everyone was fairly good in this movie. And with this being Masters of the Universe, you expect some sort of combat, and there are plenty of sword fights in this film that lean into sort of the medieval fantasy side of things. So if you're a fan of that kind of action, it's packed with those kinds of moments, especially in the third act of the film. I also admired how stylistically there was one fight scene that seemingly was inspired by the show or the previous film, because the audience was getting into it. There were some slow motion elements, and just the way it was shot almost felt comic booky. I mean that in a complimentary way. It screamed, this is for the fans. And I can always appreciate when an IP does try and put the fans first and always acknowledge them. But at the same time, you want that to pair with a film that packs a punch and is memorable. And I can't say that's what Masters of the Universe is. In fact, to me, this was really dull. It was kind of forgettable, and worst of all, it was just formulaic. Like, I kid you not, this movie comes off as a superhero origin story for Masters of the Universe, and we've seen plenty of those movies over the last 10 to 15 years, so because of that, it inherently feels stale. It feels overplayed. The journey our main character goes on isn't that revolutionary, it's not shocking, nothing about this movie is really reinventing the wheel. And so in the year 2026, it's difficult when you get a big blockbuster like this for one of the big summertime releases, because you've seen it before, and you don't want that, especially when audiences are seemingly craving originality. This movie lacks it heavily, and that was a bummer. Something I can't stand, and I referenced this in a recent review, was how a lot of films were kind of stuck in this era of recycling Marvel Cinematic Universe humor, jokes that fall flat and stale. They can get a hearty laugh out of the audience here and there, but that style of comedy, even from like the sequel trilogy with Star Wars and like Thor Ragnarok, it's very present here. It's littered all throughout the film, and time again, I found myself going, oh man, that's just not hitting. joke after joke missed the mark, and there were plenty of like running gags and bits that just kept going or would pop back up later in the film, and they still didn't get a laugh out of me, and I was bummed about that, but it's just the way I feel. I thought the humor across the board was a pretty big miss and a glaring error. In fact, the movie itself seemed to be riddled with way too much humor. Now, I don't know, again, because I don't have a familiarity with Masters of the Universe, if like cheesy humor is their shtick. If it is, awesome. Fans will be pleased. As an outsider looking in, it wasn't my cup of tea particularly. I was really irritated with Skeletor as the villain because he is like a evil villain, very stereotypical, and the movie leans into that, but so much so that it tries to be meta with it and almost uses the meta humor as an excuse to not have a well-written villain with any actual depth or motivations. That frustrated me. The movie even makes a joke about it pretty on. They're like, I'm the bad guy, I'm the villain, that's why I want to do this thing, that's why I want to get this power. Just comes off as lazy to me. The film tried to make a joke out of the fact that they don't actually have a compelling villain. Maybe it's because Jared Leto voices this character. You wouldn't know that though, unless you knew he was in the movie and saw him on IMDb listed as Skeletor, because general audiences really will have no clue he's in this, and I think that was the movie's intention. If you didn't know, there's like this toxic aura around Jared Leto's name. He's often associated with movies bombing at the box office. Tron Ares recently didn't do that well. He's of course Morbius, and so studios seem to be scared of him. I don't know why he was even cast in this film, if they were afraid to market it as such, but he's here, he plays Skeletor. I don't know if he was actually physically in makeup or whatever it was, but he's the voice of Skeletor, and because of how like modulated in post the voice was, it's so deep and distorted you cannot tell it's him unless you distinctly know already going in. Like, unless you looked online or heard about the casting, you wouldn't know it was Jared Leto. It seems like a waste to even cast him. They could have just had any old voice actor play this character. I don't know why Jared Leto was the choice, and then it even makes me scratch my head more as to why they're trying to cover it up after the fact. It's kind of just a weird situation. I guess he's just box office poison, but regardless, Skeletor is a very one-note villain who reminds me of some of like the weaker MCU villains you would see in like the early Phase 1 days. The movie tries to have this like hero's journey, triumphant moments, but the themes and messages are just really on the nose and spelled out for the audience. Adam has a roommate in the first act of the movie, and there's a moment where he even tells him, like, you just need to live your life. Go work your job like everyone else and pay your rent. That's what life is all about. And it's like, clearly, he longs for more and adventure, and he thinks he has greater purpose. So you know exactly what's going to happen. I will say, if you struggle to turn your brain off and suspend disbelief in certain moments, there are instances where you might be really bothered in the first act, where characters do something in a chase scene and you're like, whoa, that person might have just snapped both their legs and maybe even died, but they're getting up and running. So I don't really dwell on those unless it becomes offensive, but there were some moments in this movie where I was like, there are definitely people who are going to be bothered by that, and I get it totally. I understand. I think I'd be a little higher on this movie if it weren't as long. The thing's 2 hours and 12 minutes. There was like a Man of Steel-esque opening that felt like 20 minutes. If you've seen Man of Steel, you know why I say that, where it's just our main character, younger, and something happens on a planet, and then they go away from that planet. It's drawn out, and I was just like, whoa, this is gonna be a long one, isn't it? The second act, by the time it ends, you're like, whoa, I feel like the movie should be over. Boom, you got 30 more minutes. So it's not the best with the pacing, and certainly is overlong. I think 2:12 for a movie like this, just not necessary. But you know, you gotta shove a lot in there, I guess, to please all the fans. So at the end of the day, I mean, Masters of the Universe is totally watchable. It's just not very memorable. It's not offensively bad. Again, it's not like how mad I was after Mandalorian and Grogu, because I was like, Star Wars should mean something on the big screen. And maybe Masters of the Universe fans are pissed. I have no idea, because I don't know really any of them. But if you are a diehard, please let me know your thoughts on this film. But to me, as an outsider, again, I'm like, it was watchable. It was pretty forgettable. It didn't offend me, but like, it is checking the boxes of just generic origin story, lazy, bad villain. It's not what you want. And so it definitely didn't leave an impression on me. It didn't intrigue me to want to go check out other projects set within this world of Masters Universe, like the cartoon, the movie with Dolph Lundgren, like those things, not interested in. So if this movie's job was to get newer audiences who didn't grow up with Masters of the Universe or He-Man on board, it probably failed if that was its main mission and attempt. If its goal is to please longtime fans, it might actually work. I don't know, again, because I am not a longtime fan, but it seemed like people were pretty pleased with what they saw. I think the movie is probably something that came out way too late. No one was really asking for this. Die-hard fans probably would have appreciated it back in the 80s or 90s. It's now 2026. Seems like it's kind of a dead IP in terms of modern day interest, and so I kind of just, again, scratch my head, go, why is this movie coming out, especially in a loaded summer? I fear it will underperform greatly at the box office, probably be on digital come September. That's just my read. But my final takeaway and final statement on Masters of the Universe is that it's not offensively bad, nor does it do anything remarkable. It's watchable, but familiar. If you've seen any big franchise blockbuster over the last 10 years that's mid to meh, you've seen this movie. That's just my honest take on Masters of the Universe. Let me know your thoughts down below, your predictions if you haven't seen it, your expectations, you can watch it or not. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But thank you guys, as always, for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.